London is a place that's overly romanticized. By 1922, it served as the capital of the largest empire in history, spreading its language and governance structures across the globe. For London, this myth crystallized during the Victorian and Edwardian eras, a time when the city was seen as the beating heart of an empire on which the sun never set, a place of grandeur, innovation, and boundless opportunity, where the roads were made of gold and the rivers flowed with wine. This perception of London was further spurred by its role as the epicenter of the Industrial Revolution, where advancements in technology, engineering, and industry transformed the nation to become the world's leading industrial power. By 1851, the country was dubbed the Workshop of the World after holding the first World's Fair in Hyde Park. The crown jewel of the fair was the Crystal Palace, a cast iron and plate glass structure purpose built to house the exhibition. The city's skyline bristled with smokestacks, its streets teemed with factories, and its docks overflowed with goods from every corner of the globe. The British Museum, Museum of Natural History, and the V&A opened during the 18th and 19th centuries, and held historical artifacts and scientific wonders of the world, both stolen and purchased, including the famed Rosetta Stone, pieces of the Greek Parthenon, and specimens once owned by Charles Darwin. To the world, the City of London became a symbol of progress, a testament to Britain's success in the global economy. From Shakespeare's plays in the Globe Theatre to the revered West End, London became a center for the arts. Later 20th century acts like the Beatles, Elton John, Led Zeppelin, David Bowie, Pink Floyd, the Proclaimers, and the Rolling Stones cemented Britain's status as a leader in popular music. Beyond the arts, London was also home to literary giants like Charles Dickens, whose novels captured the city's contradictions, its wealth and poverty, its grandeur and squalor. Along with writers like George Bernard Shaw, Charlotte and Emily Bronte, Oscar Wilde, Virginia Woolf, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and J.R.R. Tolkien, British novels have shaped literary traditions worldwide, influencing storytelling, social commentary, and the development of the Bildungsroman, mystery, and high fantasy genres. Works like Jane Eyre, Great Expectations, and David Copperfield continue to be read today in English literature classrooms across the world, while Middle-earth continues to inspire renowned franchises like Game of Thrones, Warhammer, World of Warcraft, and Dungeons and Dragons. In the sciences, London was a stage for many groundbreaking discoveries that have reshaped human understanding. From James Watt's steam engine to Michael Faraday's electric motor, British inventions have dramatically changed how we communicate, travel, and harness energy. Scientists like Charles Darwin introduced new ideas like natural selection and carrying capacity, helping to reshape how we think about the environment and resource management. Henry Cavendish's discovery of hydrogen, J.J. Thomson's discovery of electrons, James Rutherford's discovery of the proton, and James Chadwick's discovery of the neutron laid much of the groundwork for modern physics and chemistry. Numerous world-changing discoveries were made in London, and made it a center of global academia across the 19th and 20th centuries. The city's thriving intellectual landscape and freedom of expression also drew international scholars and cultural luminaries like Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Friedrich Engels, Karl Marx, Friedrich Hayek, Sigmund Freud, and Marie Curie. London has had this magnetism that drew in people from around the world, with the United Kingdom having gained a reputation for academic excellence, scientific achievement, and opportunity for social and economic mobility. This reputation, coupled with the push factors of colonial influence and restricted opportunities at home, influenced many nations across the globe to send their students to study in the United Kingdom. Students from the former empire, including the British Raj, Nigeria, British Malaya, the Gulf states, Egypt, as well as from other parts of the world such as China, Japan, Thailand, Russia, Greece, Germany, and the United States, all sought higher education through British institutions. A British university qualification emerged as a universal currency, distinguishing degree holders as members of an educated global elite. For the empire's subjects, it was a source of social mobility, enabling graduates to take up civil service and professional jobs in their home nations. Other governments like Qing China, Meiji Japan, and the Kingdom of Siam sponsored students to study abroad, in hopes that they would bring back knowledge to help with their own ambitions of modernization. Over the centuries, newly affluent families viewed association with Britain as a symbol of social status, with families in places like Russia and Egypt, as well as parts of the empire like Malaysia and Nigeria, beginning long traditions of sending their children to be educated in England as a rite of passage and as a means of social mobility. For many Europeans, the United Kingdom was an alluring option as a means to gain both international and foreign language experience, aided by the country's relative stability, proximity to the continent, and international reputation. Ushered in by centuries of imperial dominance, the desire for an English education became a means for the British to immortalize their influence past the end of their empire. A British education holds a veritable monopoly over prominent political positions around the world, both in the past and today. From the prestigious institutions of Oxbridge to the London School of Economics and the Royal Military Academy of Sandhurst, founders of entire countries, heads of state, government officials, and members of royal families have been educated within the United Kingdom's hallowed halls. The alumni lists of these institutions read like a directory of global power, encompassing figures who have shaped the social political landscape of their nations. To study in the United Kingdom is a signifier of social status, spurred by a desire for upward mobility, reinforced by the success of famous alumni, and preserved by societal tradition. Economically, it is indisputable that London is a major center for finance. Beginning in the 17th century, London has gradually adopted financial innovations and outcompeted rival hubs like Amsterdam and Paris. By the 19th century, the city had emerged as the preeminent stock exchange, while also being a leader in sovereign bonds, foreign exchange, commodities, insurance, and trade through Lloyd's of London. Its fortuitous location at GMT has allowed London to continue this dominance through the 21st century, as it straddles both the end of the trading day in Asia and the beginning of the trading day in North America. Putting it all together, London has had a history of being the place to be, the center of culture, progress, and power. For centuries, it has attracted scholars, artists, politicians, and innovators drawn by its world-class institutions, thriving art scene, and global influence. Developing art, technology, and science has been shared the world over. That history continues to linger by shaping perceptions of London today, making the city the third most visited in the world and the country receiving the second most international students after the United States. London has a lot of soft power. We see this through how it is portrayed through social media.
The next station is Bond Street. Doors will open on the right-hand side.
TikTok really romanticizes London, making places like Covent Garden, Oxford Circus, and Piccadilly Circus look much more interesting and full of things to do compared to reality. Yet the London of today is in decline. Taking inflation into account, wages have remained stagnant for nearly 2 decades, having entirely failed to keep up with rising costs following the 2008 financial crisis. To help put this into perspective, without the crisis, the average worker would make an additional $11,000 more annually. Brexit, enacted in January of 2020, has exacerbated the country's economic woes, introducing trade barriers that have increased costs through tariffs, longer customs procedures, and general logistical complexities. These additional costs have reduced margins, making it more difficult for British producers to set competitive prices in the global market. It's gotten so bad that there's an entire phrase to describe this phenomenon: cost of living crisis. Since late 2021, inflation from the world economy, the aforementioned Brexit, COVID, and war in Ukraine have caused prices to significantly outpace incomes. As of 2024, the median income in London is £47,000, or about $3,000 a month. To reach this median salary, you would ideally need to work in an extremely lucrative role like banking, consulting, quantitative trading. Jobs you'd typically think would pay well, like accounting, nursing, engineering, and software development, only start around $30,000. The typical graduate salary in the UK is £25,000, or about $13.85 an hour pre-tax. The national living wage stands at $11.44 an hour. At current salaries, the average graduate would be making barely above or possibly even lower than the London living wage. When Sainsbury's, a retail grocer, pays between $13.15 to $13.70 an hour, nearly the same as the average new grad, it raises serious questions about the value of a degree in the UK. While you can argue the service and retail sectors have a lower salary ceiling than a graduate role, I would say that paying new university graduates nearly the same fails to compensate for their opportunity cost of 3 years of study, both in terms of tuition expenses and lost earnings. The London job market has become hyper-focused on the corporate world. For better or for worse, this reserves the highest compensations to consulting, finance, and law, drawing in people regardless of what they study, whether it be history, medicine, engineering, or anything else in between. This salary crisis is compounded by the broader cost crisis. Everything from food to housing and transportation is exorbitantly expensive. A recent study showed that 1 in 4 adults have a side hustle or a second job. An average meal in London costs between 15 to 30 pounds. If you're more cost sensitive, your only options besides niche local spots are cheap eats like Pret, McDonald's, Itsu, and Wasabi. The median rent for a central London studio begins at £12.75 a month, rising to £1,700 as you get closer to the city centre, making the cost of housing an overwhelming financial burden. London's average percent of salary spent on rent is one of the highest in the world, lagging behind only Hong Kong. With rent alone consuming such a large part of post-tax income, even those earning near the median salary struggle to afford central London living without financial support, house sharing, or a significant compromise in lifestyle. At the same time, property ownership is also an impossibility. Lax foreign ownership laws, strict regulations on new developments, and potential for capital appreciation have made housing prices skyrocket, with London being home to one of the highest number of foreign-owned homes in the world. The extensive use of leaseholds is another thorn against home ownership. Essentially modern-day feudalism, these long-term rental agreements prey on the already scarce housing supply by applying additional ground rents, service charges, and other encumbrances, while still charging high prices and reserving ownership of the property to a wealthy upper class. Transport for London, or TfL, has the highest public transit fares in the world, at an average of £200 for a monthly pass and £4 for a single-trip ticket. A distant second is New York at £2 for a single ticket and £100 for the monthly, nearly half the price in comparison. London also claims the crown as Europe's slowest moving city, with the average time to travel 10 kilometers at 33 minutes. London's underground also tops as the dirtiest in terms of air quality and noise levels, with average PM 2.5 levels of 88 and average noise levels of 100 decibels. At the same time, the British government seems to be focused on selling everything that isn't nailed down, determined to privatize key industries, offload public assets, and attract foreign investment at the expense of long-term health of the economy and its citizens. Beginning with the ill-fated era of Margaret Thatcher, Britain began selling off its state-owned assets.
She is selling off, at a fraction of its value, a highly profitable company to a bosom chum and a major contributor to the Conservative Party.
Britain privatized companies from Thames Water, British Steel, British Rail, British Gas, British airports including Heathrow, Gatwick City, and most recently, Royal Mail. As profit-seeking motives drove these new owners to prioritize shareholder returns, these essential services became less reliable, more expensive, and less invested in the future welfare of British citizens. The renowned British exchanges have also been in decline, with the London Stock Exchange hitting 18 months of listing outflows and characterized by low volumes and cheap valuations. Lured by deeper pools of capital and higher trading volumes, many companies chose to list on American and European exchanges. Perhaps the most illustrative of this exodus are British pensions, where allocations to domestic equities have been reduced from over half to just 6% in the last 25 years. The United Kingdom seems to be at a precipice, straddled between the dying embers of empire and an uncertain future. It seems to have chosen the path of unfettered capitalism, where everything is viewed as an asset to be exploited in the relentless pursuit of profit. With the government allowing everything, from property, companies, and public infrastructure to be sold off piecemeal, the country risks losing control over its own future, itself becoming an asset on somebody else's balance sheet.